Okay, ready for a deep dive? Today, it's something we all think about, right? Living longer.
But not just longer.
Exactly. Not just adding years, but
Thriving. Well into our later years. And we've got some serious sources for this one.
oh, we went deep. We've got those insights from the National Institutes of Health.
The NIH, always a great place to start.
Always. Plus, we found some really interesting research articles.
Cutting edge stuff.
Yeah, and even the Stanford Center on Longevity's report.
Which, let me tell you, that report was quite a ride. A lot to unpack there.
We'll get into it. And of course, no deep dive is complete without tapping into some expert minds.
Absolutely.
So we're picking the brains of Dr. David Sinclair,
The geneticist.
the one and only. His work is amazing. And then we've got Dr. Peter Attia.
His work on the science of aging is, well, it's mind-blowing.
Seriously. Okay, so we're going to have a lot to discuss today, but I think a good starting point.
Where do we even start?
Right. Well, life expectancy has almost doubled in the last century.
Just imagine that a few generations back, living to 54.
That's younger than me.
That was average.
Makes you grateful for how far we've come, but it also makes you wonder,
The Stanford Longevity Report, they brought up a really important point.
it's not just about more years, it's about more good years.
Right.
Like, what do they call it?
Healthspan.
Healthspan. There it is.
Being vibrant and independent, not just alive, but really living. That's the goal, isn't it? And this is where it gets really interesting. The choices we make, they matter.
So it's not all about our genes. Give me some good news here.
Right. It's not predetermined. The NIH research, it actually suggests that genes,
Come on, genes. Tell me more.
for most people, they only account for less than a third of how long we live. Think about that. You've got all this power to change how you age.
Okay, I like hearing that. We've got some power. But where do we even start? Because there's so much information out there. Diet, exercise, it's overwhelming.
You're right. It's a lot to sift through. But Dr. Peter Attia, in one of his interviews, he said something that really resonated with me.
Okay, Dr. Attia, hit us with it.
He said exercise, it might be even more important than diet for a longer, healthier life.
Wait, hold on. More than diet now. I need to hear more about this.
He argues that exercise,
Even if we're not training for a marathon.
right, even moderate activity, it creates this ripple effect. It's not just about our weight. It affects our cardiovascular health, our brains, everything.
Okay, so we're talking about moving our bodies regularly. What kind of exercise are we talking about here? I mean, does it have to be intense?
Dr. Attia, he emphasizes balance. So some strength training,
Got it.
some cardio, and incorporating some stability work as well. And get this, he's really big on grip strength.
Grip strength. That's interesting. What's the connection there?
He calls it a crystal ball for longevity.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Well, think about it. Grip strength, it's a good indicator of your overall muscle mass, overall strength,
Makes sense.
which is essential as we get older if we want to stay independent. Simple things like carrying groceries, climbing stairs, even getting out of a chair.
That's like a little window into how we're aging. Okay, grip strength. Got it. But what about food? We can't ignore the role of nutrition in all of this.
We can't, but it can be tricky.
Right. Tricky.
Dr. Attia, he talks about how we're basically wired to store fat.
Which makes sense, from an evolutionary standpoint. Back in the day, you never knew when your next meal was coming.
Exactly. It was beneficial for our ancestors who faced famine, but now...
We're surrounded by food 24/7. Our biology hasn't quite caught up, has it?
Exactly. And Dr. Attia, he points out that it's not even just about our weight on the scale.
It's not.
He's really concerned about visceral fat.
Visceral fat, that's the dangerous kind that builds up around our organs, right?
That's the one. And it's sneaky. Even if you look lean, you could still have this hidden danger lurking.
So how do we combat that? I mean, let's be real. The world is practically designed for us to overeat.
It's true. Dr. Attia, he talks about mindfulness, making conscious food choices, and I think this is key, surrounding yourself with healthy options. He acknowledges that willpower, it only gets us so far.
So true. We need to set ourselves up for success.
Absolutely.
And this ties into something else we came across in the Stanford Longevity Report. They were talking about the importance of creating environments that support our efforts to live healthier lives. It's like we need a total lifestyle shift, not just a new diet.
100%. And speaking of things that often get overlooked, especially when we talk about living longer, sleep, Dr. Attia gets really fired up about this one.
It's going to say we can't forget about sleep, but how important is it really?
He compares sleep deprivation to being legally drunk.
Okay, wow, I did not know that.
That's how much it impacts our memory, our judgment, even the way our bodies process sugar. It's not a joke.
Okay, that's a powerful analogy. So what kind of damage are we talking about, even if we don't feel like completely impaired?
It's not just about feeling a little groggy. Dr. Attia connected chronic sleep loss to serious health risks, things like heart disease.
Wow, really?
Even Alzheimer's. It's like the slow burn, it affects our bodies over time.
Okay, that's definitely motivation to set an earlier bedtime. But how much sleep are we actually aiming for here?
Most adults, they need at least 7 to 9 hours of good quality sleep each night.
Okay, that's a pretty good chunk.
It is, but the good news is, even if you're busy, Dr. Attia, he offered some really practical tips. Like, he's a big advocate for sticking to a consistent sleep schedule.
Oh, even on the weekends. That's tough.
I know, but it helps regulate your body's natural rhythm.
Okay, so consistency is key. What else can we do?
Creating a relaxing bedtime routine, that helps too. Dimming the lights in the evening, avoiding caffeine and alcohol before bed, it all helps you wind down.
Makes sense. Setting the stage for good sleep. We actually got a listener question that ties into this feeling overwhelmed thing. They're wondering, where do we even start with all this information?
It's a great question. I mean, there is a lot out there, right? But I always say it's not about being perfect. It's about progress. It's about taking those small steps. And it might be helpful to circle back to those 8 habits.
The ones that are linked to a longer lifespan from that research article we mentioned earlier.
Exactly. The one with, what was it, over 700,000 participants?
That's huge. That study was fascinating.
Right. And those habits, staying active, not smoking, managing stress, a healthy diet, having a good social life, and, of course, enough sleep. I mean, on their own, they're not groundbreaking, but when you put them all together...
It paints a picture. Like a holistic approach to well-being. It's about adding life to your years, not just years to your life.
Exactly. And here's the good news. They found that even adopting those habits later in life, like in your 40s, your 50s, even 60s...
It's never too late.
Never too late. It can still have a big impact on your health span.
I love that. Now that's empowering. But let's be real. Life happens. We get off track. What about those times when we slip up? Asking for a friend, obviously.
It happens, but it's about getting back on track.
Yeah.
And I think that's where Dr. Attia's centenarian decathlon idea comes in.
The 10 activities for a fulfilling final decade.
Yes. He's basically saying it's never too early to start thinking about the life you want to live as you age.
So it's less about the specifics and more about a mindset.
Exactly. He wants us to work backward from that vision of, like, our ideal older selves. Let's say you want to be hiking mountains with your grandkids.
I love that.
Right. Well, what can you do today to build that strength, that stamina? If having a really fulfilling social life is important, how can you nurture those relationships now?
It's like reverse engineering your life. I love it.
Yeah.
And it brings us back to this idea that we do have agency. We can make choices today that affect our future.
Exactly. And speaking of the future, remember that Stanford longevity report?
How could we forget?
They had some really interesting thoughts on how technology is going to change the way we age.
Oh, right. Like they were talking about smart skin becoming a thing.
Smart skin. Can you imagine? And exoskeletons, too.
Smart skin. I mean, is that even possible? It sounds like something out of a movie.
Right. But they described it as these electronic tattoos that could monitor your vital signs. And then, get this, they could even alert you to health issues before you even notice any symptoms.
So it's like having a personal health assistant with you 24/7.
Exactly. Pretty amazing, right? And then those exoskeletons.
Okay, yeah, the exoskeletons, those I've actually seen in movies.
Right. And now they're becoming a reality. The report talked about how they could help people with mobility issues maintain their independence. Like maybe they could help you hike with those grandkids, even if your joints aren't what they used to be.
Wow. It's like we're giving people back their freedom, their ability to really live their lives to the fullest.
Incredible.
What else is on the horizon? Did they talk about any other cool technologies?
Oh, yeah. They mentioned advancements in therapeutic robots, like robots that could deliver targeted drug therapies.
Wow.
Even help repair damaged tissues.
It sounds like something out of Star Trek.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But it's the world we're heading toward. And I think it's important to think about not just how these technologies can help us live longer, but also how they can help us live better.
Absolutely. And one thing that really resonated with me from the Stanford Longevity Report was their call to rethink work and retirement.
Yes. That traditional 3-stage model of life, education, career, retirement, they're saying it's outdated.
Life's just not that linear anymore.
Exactly. And they talked about these glide paths where people could, step away from their careers for a bit, maybe to take care of family or pursue other passions.
I love that.
And then they could return to work later on, maybe with a renewed sense of purpose. And they talked about returnships, which are specifically designed to help people re-enter the workforce after a break.
It's great that they're acknowledging that our lives are multifaceted and always evolving. We don't just fit into these neat little boxes anymore.
Exactly. And they also challenged this idea that older workers are somehow a drain on society. They talked about the unique skills, the experience, the wisdom that they bring to the table.
It's about valuing the contributions of people at all stages of life, which actually reminds me of their idea of longevity-ready communities. What did they mean by that?
Well, it's about creating environments that support us as we age. So thinking about things like accessibility.
Right, making sure our communities are designed in a way that allows everyone to participate.
Exactly. And access to green spaces, places where people can connect with nature, with each other. It's about fostering a sense of belonging, a place where everyone feels valued.
So it's not just about physical infrastructure. It's about creating a certain feeling, a sense of community.
Yes. It's about creating communities that are designed for people of all ages, where everyone can thrive.
It's a beautiful vision. But creating that, that seems like such a massive undertaking. Where do we even begin?
The report argued that it starts with a shift in mindset. We need to stop viewing aging as this negative thing, something to be feared, and start embracing it.
It's about changing the narrative around aging.
Exactly, and recognizing that we all have a role to play in creating these longevity-ready communities.
So what can our listeners do? What can they do on a personal level to help make this vision a reality? Because it can feel daunting to think about tackling such big issues.
It can, but even small actions can make a difference. Supporting local businesses that prioritize accessibility, volunteering in your community, speaking out in support of policies that promote healthy aging.
It's about recognizing that we're all interconnected, and that even small changes can ripple outwards. It's about shifting our focus from me to we.
Exactly. It's about collective action, collective responsibility. And as we've seen, the potential rewards, they're huge. We're talking about creating a world where everyone has the opportunity to live a longer, healthier, more fulfilling life.
Now, before we move on to our final thoughts, I wanted to address a few more listener questions.
Yeah.
We had a few people write in asking about anti-aging supplements and therapies. What are your thoughts on those? Are they worth the hype?
That's a hot topic, for sure. There's so much out there, it's understandable why people are curious. But I think it's important to approach those new treatments with a healthy dose of skepticism.
Like Dr. Attia said, a lot of these things haven't been rigorously tested. The science is still evolving.
Exactly. It's crucial to do your research, talk to your doctor, and make informed decisions based on evidence.
Not just on what you see in advertisements or online.
Exactly. Remember, there's no quick fix, no magic bullet for aging. The most effective strategies for living longer and healthier are those healthy habits, that positive mindset, and having a strong support system. Those are the things we've been talking about today.
Another listener wrote in asking about how to create a longevity-ready home. Do you have any tips for people who are thinking about maybe making some modifications to their living spaces?
That's such a great question, and it's something we should all be thinking about no matter how old we are.
Right. It's never too early to start thinking about those things.
Exactly. The Stanford Longevity Report, they emphasized creating environments that support us as we age, and that includes our homes.
So what kind of things should people consider?
Well, accessibility is key. Thinking about things like installing grab bars in the bathroom, removing any tripping hazards, making sure there's enough lighting.
Right, making it easier to move around safely.
And also creating spaces where you can comfortably socialize with friends and family. It's about staying connected.
And it doesn't have to be about these big renovations either, right? Sometimes it's the small things that make a big difference.
Absolutely. Like improving lighting, adding non-slip mats, creating a cozy seating area. Those can all go a long way. And remember, it's not just about making it functional, it's about making it your own. Your home should be a reflection of you, your personality, your passions.
It should be a place where you feel comfortable and happy. Okay, we also had a question from a listener who's a caregiver for their aging parents. They're feeling a bit burnt out and wondering how to take care of themselves while still being there for their parents.
That's such a common issue, and it's something the Stanford Longevity Report touched on. They talked about the growing caregiving crisis and how important it is to have support systems in place for both caregivers and those receiving care.
Because it's a demanding role, both physically and emotionally.
Absolutely. And caregivers often neglect their own needs, but it's so important to remember that taking care of yourself is not selfish, it's essential. If you're not taking care of yourself, you're not going to be able to take care of anyone else.
It's like the oxygen mask on an airplane, right? You have to put yours on first before you can help others.
Exactly. And there are resources available to help. Support groups, respite care, online communities, those can all be lifesavers for caregivers.
It's about recognizing that you're not alone and that it's okay to ask for help. And finally, we had a question from a listener in their 20s who asked, why should I even care about aging now?
It's easy to think about aging as something that happens way off in the future, especially when you're in your 20s. You feel invincible. But the reality is, the choices we make today, they have a huge impact on our health and well-being down the road.
It's like that saying, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now.
Exactly. Healthy aging, it's a lifelong process. It's not something that starts when you hit a certain age. It's about building those healthy habits and practices into your life from the very beginning.
And those habits like exercising regularly, eating a healthy diet, getting enough sleep, managing stress, they not only help us live longer, but they also help us live better today.
Exactly. They contribute to your energy levels, your mood, your cognitive function, your overall well-being right now. It's about living your best life today while also setting the stage for a healthy and fulfilling tomorrow.
It's empowering, right? Knowing that we have some control over how we age, it's not all predetermined.
It's really not. It's like we get to design our own aging experience to some extent.
Exactly. And, we were talking about Dr. Attia's concept of the centenarian decathlon, designing that ideal final decade. It's a cool idea, but it can also feel a little overwhelming, right? Like, where do we even begin?
It's a big question. But I think it starts with something simple. What brings you joy? What are you passionate about?
Yeah, those are good questions to ask. What makes you feel truly alive?
Right. Because if you can imagine yourself still engaged in those things years from now, well, that's a great starting point.
So it's not necessarily about making these huge changes overnight. It's about finding ways to incorporate those things that light us up, those activities that make us feel fulfilled, and making them a sustainable part of our lives.
Exactly. And, it's never too early to start thinking about this, even if you're in your 20s or 30s. Cultivating those healthy habits, nurturing those passions, that's an investment in your future self.
It's like planting seeds today for a garden you'll get to enjoy for years to come. And speaking of gardens, I keep thinking about that idea from the Stanford Longevity Report about creating supportive environments. They talked about how our surroundings can either help or hinder our efforts to live longer, healthier lives.
Oh, absolutely. Our environment plays a huge role.
It's like we need an entire ecosystem shift, not just a new diet or a gym membership.
It's bigger than just us, right? It's about creating communities that are designed to support people of all ages, places where we can all thrive.
Walkable neighborhoods, access to green spaces, opportunities for social connection, it all matters.
It does. It's about creating that sense of belonging, that feeling that you're a part of something larger than yourself. And I think as we wrap up this deep dive, that's a powerful message to leave our listeners with. It's not just about individual choices. It's about creating a world where everyone has the opportunity to live a long, healthy, and fulfilling life.
A world where we're not just living longer, but living better. Together.
That's it for this deep dive. We hope you enjoyed this exploration of longevity and that you learned a few things along the way.
Remember, it's a journey, not a race. Pace yourself, enjoy the ride, and never stop exploring.
And we'll see you on the next deep dive.